Well, I mean, it was just a copy of, you told him 5 o'clock, right? That day, yeah. That's what I told him yesterday.
Well, we could always say, bless us, O Lord, and these are gifts which we are about
I
to.
have,
Barb's got it handled. She's ready. Barb's got it handled. She always has it handled.
always have to, in case of no-shows.
Yeah, always be
That's
prepared.
okay.
Were you a Girl Scout?
Yes.
Yeah, see?
I was a
Okay, it is 5 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to everybody who's here. The first meeting that we are going to have here tonight is the final public budget hearing. So that what we will do is we'll go through the budget, we will vote on a new budget, and then we will adjourn that meeting, and then we will start our regular monthly meeting. So this first meeting is just for budget. So unfortunately, Pastor West could not make it tonight, so I'm going to ask Barb if you will do the invocation.
Bow our heads. Heavenly Father, let us pray that you will help us establish our steps in the decisions we make today for the health needs of our community. I pray that the trustees will seek you for advice and that our decisions and our actions will be based upon your wisdom. Please guide us, Lord. We place this meeting in your hands, as well as our hearts and our minds, so that you may direct us. We ask this in your name, we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Given that this is the final budget meeting for the 21-22 budget year, that's right, 21-22 budget year, I'm going to turn that over now to Alan Jones, our treasurer. Alan?
Okay, thank you, Mary Beth. So this is well, first of all, I guess I should confirm you can hear me okay.
Yes, we can hear you, Alan.
Okay, good. This is the final of 2 statutorily required public meetings to finalize the budget for the Indian River County Hospital District for the upcoming fiscal year. The format in the law is quite specific, and we need to stick to the required format. Some of this will be a little redundant to what we have done, so please bear with us as we go through the process. But by the conclusion of today's meeting, the public will have had ample opportunity to comment and influence the final budget and should have a clear understanding of the proposal. So the first step is to recognize that on September the 8th, the trustees voted to adopt a proposed millage of 0.7612. That millage rate is a reduction of 4.98% in millage from the current 0.8011. This millage will maintain the same ad valorem tax revenue as the current fiscal year. The reduction in millage results in the same revenues to the district as the current fiscal year, but represents a decrease of 1.65% as a percentage of the rollback rate. The reason there's a reduction in millage results in flat revenues is that the assessed property tax values in Indian River County increased somewhat over 5% year over year. Number 2, what are the purposes of the ad valorem tax revenues? The district will continue to support agencies providing healthcare services to the public the district trustees deem important to improving community health. To prepare for contingencies, particularly in this COVID era, the trustees have built reserves to be able to respond to constantly changing healthcare circumstances. The budget approved on September 8th anticipates carrying over about 4.2 million in reserves, of which about 1.8 million are restricted for pre-designated purposes. And then further increasing the reserves, 3.9 million to a total of 8.1 million in order to properly be prepared to respond to potential community needs. The hospital district has already met with representatives from Cleveland Clinic, Indian River Hospital, Treasure Coast Community Health, Whole Family Health Center, and others, and has identified a number of potential areas that are likely to be very effective in improving community health. Extensive analysis has been completed of the possible costs of implementing the programs, and that work continues to thoroughly inform trustees on these issues. There is preliminary discussion with county commissioners on consolidating healthcare expenditures that may overlap between the district and the county and ultimately prove more efficient for taxpayers. The trustees want to be prepared for that eventuality. The hospital district is planning to undertake a strategic visioning process beginning in the fourth quarter of 2021 to clearly establish its role and function to impact the improvement of health outcomes in our community. A consultant will be hired to assist in this process. Administration of the district's efforts continues to be a relatively small part of the total projected expenditures at 6.62% of proposed ad valorem taxes. Trustees have met several times in public meetings, including as recently as yesterday, and expressed their views on the budget proposed September 8th. At each meeting, the trustees have encouraged members of the public to express comment, and once again, the trustees are asking for a public comment. So before going further, is there any public comment on the budget proposed and approved on September the 8th? Now, hearing none, the next legally prescribed steps are for the trustees to propose the adoption of a millage rate. It may be the same or less than that proposed on September 8th, but it cannot be higher. After the opportunity for further discussion by the trustees and members of the public, trustees will vote on a final resolution to adopt a millage rate for the upcoming fiscal year. So is there a motion to adopt a final millage rate, which can be the same or lower than the 0.7612 adopted on September 8th, but it cannot be higher?
I'll make a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.6633 for the 21-22 year.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and now we open for trustee discussion.
Can we make an
Any
amendment?
comments?
Can we offer an amendment to that proposal?
Yes, you can offer an amendment during discussion at this time.
Okay. I'd like to offer the amendment to raise the to adjust the millage rate to 7.7144, which is below what we had originally started with, and would represent a decrease of roughly $900,000 from the originally proposed budget, and in effect give us not only a lower millage rate, but also a lower real tax rate to the taxpayer.
So that would need a second to have further discussion on the motion as amended to reflect a millage rate of 0.7144.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to discuss the modification to the amended millage rate. Is there any discussion?
I have discussion.
Go local, your mic is.
So, obviously, this millage rate came up yesterday. It's only So the .6633, as in my discussion yesterday, was basically in reference to our reserves and reducing that reserves. And especially after yesterday's discussion, along with the financial data that Alan presented, I really feel that that .6633, by reducing the reserves by 2 million, is still a very feasible amount for us to accomplish what we want to accomplish, even in these unknown circumstances. Especially, like I said, with the data that Alan showed. So now, by coming up with a .7144, when I look at it, that still only drops that reserves, the basic reserve, by 900,000, bringing it to 7,200,000 versus the 6.2 million. So I mean, it's almost like, okay, well, let's meet halfway and let's satisfy everybody. I mean, I respect everything that all of the trustees have said and, want for the district to continue to be able to communicate not only with our agencies, but between us as trustees. But by taking it to a .7144 and reducing it by the reserves by 900,000, I don't feel that is doing anything but just meeting halfway. That I don't feel like it's significant either for or against.
May I comment? Are we still in discussion?
We're still in
Yes.
discussion, yes.
Yes, we're still in discussion.
Question, can you amend an amendment?
You can propose a secondary amendment during discussion. The motion on the floor is whether or not to amend the main motion, which
Right.
was for .633. The motion on the floor to be amended, which we're currently discussing, is .7144. During discussion, you can propose a secondary amendment if you so choose.
I would choose to do that.
Okay, so go ahead and move that. It would need to be seconded for further
I would
discussion.
Move to make an amendment to the amended
The amended motion.
motion, right,
To what?
You got to tell us what you want.
to .7612, the original.
So
I would
you've
like to amend the amendment
made a secondary amendment. You've made a motion for a
To
secondary
move-
amendment.
to move back to, as we previously discussed at other meetings, to set the millage rate at .7612, which was proposed by Alan Jones tonight.
Oh, I don't think it was proposed by Ellen. It
wasn't
was read out as where we left
As
off in
what-
September 8th.
Exactly from that meeting.
Okay, so this needs a second to have further discussion. Is there a second on the secondary amendment of this main motion to adopt a millage rate at .7612?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
May I?
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. First of all, I need to preempt my comments with an age-old quote. It's a woman's prerogative to change her mind. At a recent chairman's meeting to discuss this year's budget and to set the maximum millage rate going forward, our esteemed treasurer, Alan Jones, suggested that the trustees might consider funding the remainder of the balance, or a balance necessary to complete the refurbishing of the obstetric wing of Cleveland Clinic Indian River Medical Center from the overage of non-committed reserves, although there are a number of reserves that are committed and more, obviously, that we might have to address. This amount would be approximately $3 million, in addition to the already committed amount that will be presented here tonight to Dr. Rosenkrantz, CEO of the hospital. Initially, I was not in favor of Alan's suggestion, but in retrospect, have come to the realization that this past year and a half has been unprecedented in the history of our hospital and our nation. And if it were not for the fact that we are fortunate to have the Cleveland Clinic resources at our disposal, addressing the COVID crisis head-on, making the necessary adjustments in order to accommodate the hundreds of COVID admissions to the hospital, to the intensive care unit, etc., initiating a rapid response vaccine program for frontline caregivers, eliminating elective surgeries and procedures in order to concentrate on the crisis at hand, bringing in traveling professionals to handle the volume of patients admitted in a critical state. We might be sitting here under much different circumstances addressing the pandemic's path of chaos and destruction. It seems frivolous to think that attention should move away from the issues at hand, and that we, as a representative body of the taxpayers, might consider assisting in the completion of a promised wing for mothers and babies in our community. After all, we might not be able to schedule our elective surgery at this time, but I do believe we will continue to enjoy a healthy number of babies being born in our community, despite the pandemic and all of its confusion and heartache. I would like to propose that we leave the millage rate at .7612 and assign an additional amount of reserves in order to expedite the obstetric wing of our hospital. In that way, everyone in the community will have a share in the legacy of creating a loving environment, a happy space for all the future mommies and babies in Indian River County. That's it.
Okay, so additional discussion, again, what's before the board is whether to adopt the secondary amendment to the main motion at this point in time, reflecting a millage rate of .7612. Further discussion?
So I seconded it. I think we went through the budget discussions, and on September 8th, we did agree on a 7612, although everybody wasn't totally committed to it. I appreciate everything you just said, Anne Marie, about the hospital, and I think we all know that if it wasn't, and it's appropriate that you're sitting here right now, but we all agree that if it wasn't for the fact that Cleveland were here, we would not have a hospital here today, and I believe that with all my heart. I don't think we can vote on what that money goes to today. That is not a discussion for today. So your motion is to keep the millage and then have further discussion
at
relative to what that is
0.7612.
going to go to. So I don't want to get high hopes going here with that needlessly. But I do support the 7612. I do know that it appears to be a very high amount of money to be put aside that's not earmarked, but I'm telling you that there are needs out there. And I think at this point in time, I don't feel a huge need to take that down until we go through our visioning and we open our eyes to what we can really do to help the community out there. And I don't know. I'm not smart enough to know if 8's way too much or if 6 is too little, or I'm not that smart to know that right now. So rather than haggling over what's too little or what's too lot, I would like to put our time and our effort into what the possibilities would be for the community and get on with it. So that's why I supported it.
Further discussion on whether to adopt the secondary amendment to the main motion at .7612.
I have a statement. So I appreciated watching, I'm sorry I wasn't at the chairman's meeting yesterday, but I did have the opportunity to watch the tape, and really great discussion. I respect all of you for your thoughts, and as I had said in the comments that Anne Marie read, I really feel that I agree we are going to be going through the visioning process coming up. We've received a proposal. We have to approve that proposal. That has to get started. So the visioning process is not short. It's going to be a few months, 4 or 5 months at least,
Yep.
into this fiscal year. I don't believe we should be burdening our taxpayers with a higher millage, knowing that we don't have the dollars that, we don't have a reason to use those dollars at this time. I agree, there's many needs out there. We have asked people to come before us, and if they've got unmet needs, we haven't seen a lineup yet of organizations coming to us at this point. Now, probably when the word gets out and once we have the vision and we start marketing what we are doing and who we are and what we're going to fund, and after we speak to the county commission and figure out what we're going to be funding and what they're going to be funding, I'm sure there's going to be need, but not at this point. So I don't feel having a reserve at the higher amount is necessary, and that's why I'll be saying no and voting no for the higher millage rate.
So I would only say that we have not had one taxpayer come and talk to us about their taxes,
I understand that.
okay? But we have had a lot of our agencies come and talk to us about.
Well, we also, I'd like to point out there, some things are occurring, which as I talked about yesterday, the wolf in the woods and Little Red Riding Hood. I understand as of today, we're going to need a major repair to the Gifford Health Center in the form of a new roof. And this is out of the blue, and it's going to be a considerable amount. But just to point out that we don't know what's out there, what's waiting for us, and what's going to happen. And I can sympathize with Mrs. McChrystal on the higher level. I just would prefer that we try to control our costs and keep it at the mid-level.
Is the improvement and betterment of GHC meant for things such as what Michael just mentioned?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to this. This is for the budget, but in my report in a few minutes. But the $100,000 that we have for improvement and betterment in the reserve account, we already know that about 45,000 of that is earmarked for replacing the HVAC systems at the Gifford Health Center. And then I did receive yesterday and today some communications that there's once again, some severe leaking of the roof, and so we're getting some prices on that. We're coming in somewhere in the $50,000 to $70,000 range to replace that roof, which is now necessary. I don't know that exact amount, so we're going to go over the 100. We have another 10,000 in your administrative budget for that purpose, so we'll dig in slightly to this contingency reserve that you're all speaking about now for that purpose. Again, very, very slightly, $20,000 or something, $50,000 or less.
Did you have something, Carrie?
Yes. Apologies as well with Karen for not being there yesterday. There was a lot of angst, it seemed like, about me not being able to be there. I apologize. I also looked at the Zoom meeting, found it very helpful in many ways. Some of the discussion, most of the discussion, we've heard it tonight, has been around needs of agencies. And I heard the word yesterday, agencies are desperate for funding yesterday. I will say I am more interested in the future of moving the needle in this community on an unacceptable community condition. I believe there are deepening inequities in health outcomes. There are systemic issues that we have the opportunity to address. It's not about necessarily funding more agencies and sprinkling the money. It is an opportunity to reimagine a new healthcare ecosystem in Indian River County and proactively seek partners who share this vision and are interested in aligning their resources collaboratively. It's not just the district doing this work. is a much more strategic, transformational approach. It's not about being a funder any longer. In order to do that, we are going to need capital. We don't know how much. Karen, I agree, we don't know how much, but I think we can all agree that there are deepening health inequities in this community that we have the opportunity perhaps to address. And therefore, I am staying with the original amount, the original millage.
Is it helpful, I know this is trustee discussion, but in years past, I've given the amounts of money that it costs the average taxpayer based on certain villages. Is that a helpful data point, or does it really matter at this point? I mean, I know you said we haven't had a lineup of taxpayers out there complaining that their taxes are too high or too low or
Not a
whatever.
lineup, there hasn't had one.
Well, I can say that when I look at my property tax little sheet, there's parts of it that I don't agree with, but I don't go running down to the meeting either. Maybe that's my bad, but I'm just speaking for the fact that there's not any taxpayers in here. It doesn't mean that taxpayers don't care.
And I think one other comment I have is that we're going through this whole process, and this isn't the last time we are going to be doing taxes. It's happening next year again, the same thing. And so once we have that vision and we know what we're going to be doing, we have the opportunity next year to increase the taxes. We're taxing so small. I mean, like Anne Marie always reminds us, we could tax up to 5 mils, and we don't. And we don't. We've always remained below 1 mill rate. And so it's very minuscule, I understand, to what we could do. But we haven't defined the use of the dollars, and I just have a real difficult time. I'm responsible on a day-to-day basis. I'm responsible for a lot of taxpayer dollars in my own business, in the organization. And with that in the back of my mind all the time, it's like, if I don't have a use for those dollars, I don't want to tax the people. And that's where I'm at.
So I think now we need to call for a vote.
Are you ready for the question? Is there ready to close discussion? And I'm
Well,
going to do that
I
next.
just would make a brief comment. You all heard me yesterday. I agree with every comment strategically been made about our opportunity. I agree the most, however, with the comments that Karen Deagle has made. My personal opinion is that we would have sufficient reserves at 0.6633 to achieve all of the objectives that we're striving for. And if we don't, we'll have the opportunity to come back to the taxpayer and get that money. Secondly, I would, if that were to fail, I would go with the 0.7144, because as Michael said, that at least reduces the overall taxes to the ad valorem tax, not only the millage rate, but the ad valorem taxes collected. So I'd vote against the 7612. So I won't repeat everything I said yesterday. I just wanted to be on the record for that.
So we need to vote first on whether to adopt the secondary amendment to the main motion, now that we've had discussion. And then once we see if that passes or fails, we would call for public comment if it passes before the final vote on the motion to adopt the main motion as amended to 0.7612. So we're voting right now on whether to adopt the secondary amendment. I want to be clear on that.
Which is 761.
7612.
So I will call for the vote. So, Alan, I know you just voted, so you say no, right?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Barbara?
No?
Carrie?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
I say yes. Michael?
No.
And Karen?
No.
No. Okay, so that has gone down. So now,
So the secondary amendment, as proposed, that motion fails, and now we go back to the primary amendment, which was a motion to adopt a millage rate of 0.7144.
okay, Okay, so we'll call for the vote. Alan? Alan?
Yeah, I'm thinking. I'm a vote.
You're just voting to adopt the primary amendment at .7144. We're still going to call for public comment if this is approved, and then we'll vote on the actual amendment.
I didn't think this is the primary amendment.
Right, so the primary amendment is for what is it? .7144. So we're voting on whether to adopt the primary amendment at .7144. And then we will call for any further discussion, public comment, and vote on the motion as amended, if the amended motion passes. That make sense? It's
We're
confu-
voting right now on .7144.
No, you're not.
You're voting to amend the main motion from .633 to .7144. And then you still have to vote on adopting that main motion as amended. So we will call for public comment before that vote and any other trustee discussion.
So we're voting to accept the amendment.
Yes.
Alan, do you vote to accept the amendment? Not
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
No.
Carrie?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, so at this point, the affirmative has it. The motion as amended would read to adopt a millage rate of .7144. Need to call for public comment at this time, if there is any.
Is there any public comment related to that? No.
Any further trustee discussion? Are you ready to call the question?
We can call the vote.
So the motion before you is to adopt a final millage rate for .7144. And is there anything else in Alan's motion that I need to statutorily read?
Alan, do you want, we need to make sure that we are approving the resolution
Right, I'm sorry, resolution.
2021-05, which will adopt a millage rate of .7144.
There you go.
The vote is for the resolution, to
That's right.
approve the resolution that will adopt 7144.
Okay, Alan, I'm going to put you on.
Yes.
Yes. You vote yes?
Yes.
Okay. Barbara?
No.
Carrie?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, so resolution passes and is adopted 6-1.
So I think
So we
we're-
have now voted Resolution 2021-05, which adopts a millage rate of .7144. Now we need a motion to adopt Resolution 2021-06, resulting in an overall ad valorem budget, which based on the approved millage rate is $14,728,927. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further trustee discussion? Hearing none, is there any public comment? Hearing none, I guess it's time to call for the question. I
Okay.
will vote yes.
You vote yes? Barbara?
No.
Carrie?
Yes.
Anne Marie?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Okay, so the millage rate adopted in Resolution 2021-05 as a percent of the rollback rate is a decrease of 7.7%. And the budget for the fiscal year 2021-22, as expressed in Resolution 2021-06, has been adopted with an ad valorem amount of $14,728,927, with a millage rate of .7144, which is down 10.8% from the current year, and which as a percentage of the rollback rate is down 7.7%. I think that completes the process.
Good job.
I'd like
We
to
have-
thank the trustees and the public for their participation in this. I think this is evidence of work really well done and very thoroughly vetted. So thank you. Madam Chairman, turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to all of the trustees. This has been a long, tough year of talking about budget. So we made it through and respecting each other's opinion. And I think that's the most important thing that this group really has accomplished is respecting each other's opinion and moving forward for the benefit of the community. So we are officially adjourning the final public budget hearing for fiscal year 2021, 2022. And thank you, Alan, for walking through all that. It does get very confusing, I know that, so we appreciate that. Okay, we will now convene the meeting of the Indian River County.
You have to adjourn.
I did adjourn. You need to listen.
Did we vote on that?
Okay, I will now convene the meeting of the Indian River County Hospital regular monthly meeting. And first, we will go to the consent agenda, so I need a motion for approval of the IRCHD We Care joint meeting minutes dated August 10th, the chairman's meeting minutes dated August 18th, the regular monthly meeting minutes dated August 19th, the special meeting minutes dated August 26th, and a September disbursement of Mr. Jones.
I can't find it here.
Okay, $1,369,723.11.
So move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a very special presentation here tonight, and I would like to we have Dr. Greg Rosenkrantz with us, and in listening to all of this discussion. And it is our pleasure as the trustees and the members of the hospital district to present to you a check for $500,000 for the Mother Baby campaign. And we really appreciate all that you have done.
Thank you. Thank you.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the hospital district for your support of the Mother Baby campaign. But beyond that, for your support for the hospital, for your support of our community. The conversations that I just heard, I think, were very, very important for our community, and we want to be clearly one of the key partners with you in that as we move forward. Your support of partners, historically, it's in this budget. It's historically still there, and it's really important, and it goes hand in hand with this check and the support of women and children in this county for today and for future generations as we grow as a community. And I think you need to understand that this is about the future and what it looks like. I'm happy to have Roxanne Hall, who's with me, who's the president of our Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital Foundation, and I know Roxanne has a couple words as well.
Good evening. Thank you for your time and the opportunity to be here this evening. Childbirth is the most common reason for hospitalization in the U.S., but when hospitals cut services, obstetric units are often among the first to go. Communities across the nation are losing access to hospital maternity care at an alarming rate, with serious implications for pregnant women and babies. But Cleveland Clinic is committed to providing exceptional health care and believes all women deserve the opportunity to receive health management services despite their ability to pay. With your support and the continued support of our generous donors, we can modernize and update the only women's health and maternity hospital in our community and add immeasurable value to the environment of women's healthcare in Indian River County. Thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to getting to know all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So some additional words about the mother-baby unit. We anticipate beginning the renovations and closing out this campaign at the end of this year, with the beginning of renovations sometime late first, early second quarter of next year. And so that planning process is underway. So this check will help to accelerate that. Just a couple words, if I may, Madam Chairperson, on COVID. So I'm happy to report that as of this morning, we had 26 COVID patients in the hospital, which is down from a peak of 111. We do have adequate ICU beds, staffing. We are doing elective procedures. We are surgeries and all the procedures at this point. So I do want to make the district, while I have the opportunity, so that you can hear that and things are beginning to get back to normal and feel more normal. The positivity rate in the county as of Monday, on Monday's report, was 13%. It's down from a peak of 26% at its height. I anticipate it'll be below 10% at the next report out on this coming Monday, but time will tell. So some good news on the COVID front. From the hospital perspective, we've weathered the storm, and we look forward to getting back to work. So we thank you for that opportunity.
Well, please thank all of the caregivers. You know, they put in extraordinary time and effort and, you know, have done their job. We know they're tired, and we know that they appreciate just some thanks now and then, so.
I will definitely pass that along.
Please do
And
that.
they're an amazing group of caregivers, and it's humbling to watch them work and come to work on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
What are we doing?
Can we get Alan in here somehow?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Turn the monitor around or something?
I don't know.
Seriously, can you put him on? I'm being serious.
Can't we turn him around?
There he is.
Here, you can hold this.
Those are stuck.
There he is, okay.
There you go.
There you go, see? Alan, you needed to be part of this, for sure.
Am I out of it?
Thank you.
I don't want to be in it.
See, you can even be part of the picture with that. Thank you. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
What have you done to my TV now? Now it's got some weird,
What happened?
okay, it's okay.
All right.
Robert touched my TV.
Oh, that's so good to hear about the COVID situation,
Yeah.
too. That just
Good Lord for that.
Thank you all.
really,
Thank you.
thank you
Nice to
so
have an
much.
audience.
Thank you.
They'll do stuff.
Okay, moving on. We do need to be out of here at 6:15, right? So we should be able to make that, I would think. District Council, Jennifer.
Thank
For
you.
helping us walk through that
You know,
process.
I need that Robert's Rules workout every couple of years, so I stay on top of those things, so not a problem.
I learned a lot tonight on that
I
one.
was down here advising her to make sure.
Yeah, I'm sure, Barbara.
It's an enlightening
Well,
afternoon
thank
for
you,
me.
Barb, for advising her on that, too.
In any event, it's been a busy month. It's always busy for this board this time of the year with regard to your budget meetings and making sure that you're doing your due diligence as a board prior to adopting the final budget as we did tonight. So I've been involved in that process this month. And then we got information recently that there may be a potential county ordinance change that will impact the Indian River County floodplain and stormwater code changes as it relates to the property that the district owns regarding the hospital campus. So we're following that with the Indian River County Planning and Zoning Office. And it's really, there's nothing really new to beyond what I just said to bring before you yet. They're still considering that. So we are watching that in the event you were to see or hear something about that. We're aware of it, we're watching it, and we'll bring it to the board when there is something of substance to discuss with you. If it gets to that point. So I've been involved in that as well and just still trying to work to finalize something with the hospital's attorneys with regard to the lease that we entered into with the hospital as it reflects some of the changes we made with regard to real estate in November of last year. So we're rounding third and heading for home on that and hope to have that potentially ready to finalize by next month.
Okay,
Any questions for me besides that?
nope, thank you, appreciate it. Alan, do we have a financial review?
Yes, thank you. And again, thanks to all the trustees for the thorough and respectful work on the budget. As of August 31st, the district had just under $7.8 million in cash and investments, having just funded about 1.4 million in obligations. That number is a little over 6.4 million, and is expected to be about 5.5 million as we begin the new fiscal year. About 1.3 million of that is committed to specific needs in the next fiscal year, leaving contingency reserves of 4.2 million or more to begin the fiscal year and to begin to address emerging new healthcare needs. With the budget just approved, additional reserves will be available to address potential healthcare needs during the next fiscal year. The district remains in very sound financial condition. Should be mentioned, maybe even underscored, that this is being accomplished methodically over several years, maybe beginning with the resolution of the long-term stability of the community's hospital with Cleveland Clinic, resulting in substantial gains in patient outcomes as the hospital improved in 2.5 years to a 4-star hospital as measured by CMS from a 2-star hospital when that process began. And in addition, expanding by 40% through the district, or maybe even a little more, the delivery of healthcare services to residents through the many agencies the district supports. And all that improvement in service while reducing the millage rate and the overall tax burden to the public. So we'll pat ourselves on the back for that, at least for a moment, and then move on to strive to further improve the health outcomes of all the residents of the county while being fiscally responsible. That's the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan, thank you for doing that. And you have to say that the improvement in CMS, all the while, most of that time was fighting COVID as well. So that's pretty remarkable accomplishment for the hospital, for sure. But thank you for that. Executive Director Report, Anne Marie.
Okay, I did submit my written report as I always do. I just want to make sure that, although I'm certain everyone really reads it thoroughly, that you recognize and notice that Kip Jacoby has separated from Morgan Jacoby and Thurn, who we have used for many years for our auditing services, and is now going on to his new business. And so we are moving our records along with him and keeping him as our auditor, and so I made the decision to do that, and I hope that he will be able to continue to serve us well. There were only a couple things I already covered, really, the Gifford roof issue, so I know that you know, or I am certain you know about that. I do want you to know also that a couple months ago, we talked about hiring a new audit position or an internal audit position. So I have posted that today with Indeed, and I have LF Staffing, who we have worked with before for our other employees. They are also searching for that person. So hopefully within the next few weeks, the budget you just approved covers the expenses for that salary and benefits for that position. In that kind of reorganization, and we hope to have that person, or are looking to have that person on board before we do our visioning process, so that we make sure that they're involved with that with you. Also, with that reorganization, if you will, of our staffing, Daphne is going to move on to probably till the end of the year till we finish the visioning process, to 10 hours a week working with the database, and we'll see what happens about that database at the end of the year or whenever we finish our visioning process. So she's going to work maybe 10 hours a week just to do the new application, so, and keep us up to speed until we finish that process. So I think that was it. Oh, there was a county commission meeting this week that discussed the, and approved, as a matter of fact, a request from Cleveland Clinic, Encompass Health, and Steward Health Systems, which is called a local provider participation fund. It's very similar to our low-income pool that we provide for Treasure Coast and Whole Family at this time. They made that approval. They will forward monies, and this is for as they request reimbursement from Medicaid, their Medicaid reimbursement will be given at a higher rate than what they're used to enjoying. So that is good for them. So the county commission approved that last week, and I think that begins relatively immediately. So that's all I have, unless there's questions for me.
That's good. Okay. We do have written reports from Substance Awareness and Senior Resource, so yeah, and if you have any questions after you read through there and go through it all, you can send them to Jenny and she'll go through that with that. So with that, is there any unfinished business? Any new business?
That's proposal.
Pat's. Oh,
The VNA is making a little bit of an additional funding request to begin, yes, I know we're on a time constraint, so we have Pat here to I guess you're going to speak a little bit to it and then answer any questions that you might have. So we'll have to address that for approval.
Good evening, trustees. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you this evening. So I did submit a proposal, a short proposal, to ask for additional funding for our immunization program for the homebound for both flu and COVID vaccines. And so after I submitted that, I received a notice from Anne Marie that you all had some questions that you would like for me to answer, and I'm happy to answer whatever questions you may have. Or if you'd like me to just go into a little bit more detail, I'm happy to do that as well.
I'd appreciate a little bit more detail, please.
Sure. So, Carrie, we started, as you know, we've had a flu program at the VNA for a lot of years, you know, more than anyone. And this past year, in this current year that we're in right now, in the current fiscal year, we stepped up and helped the Cleveland Clinic with their response to vaccinating the public. That was at the cost of the VNA and Hospice Foundation. We also started a homebound vaccine program at the request of the Health Department to be able to reach and understand the homebound, which we did in collaboration with Senior Resource Association. We want to be able to continue to meet the needs of the homebound. We didn't consider it sort of a one and done. We want to be able to continue to meet their needs through continuing to give COVID vaccines, both first and second doses for people that have never received them. Boosters, of course, have been approved now, and this is a very vulnerable population in the home, and we also want to be able to do flu shots in the home. So we're asking for a small amount of funding for that, to cover the nurses to go out to do those homebound vaccines, and also some of the administrative costs associated with that, because these are costs that were not budgeted previously to the foundation, and the foundation cannot absorb those costs in fiscal year 2022. I also asked for some additional supplies, so we want to be able to update our travel coolers. There's a cold chain that must be maintained very rigorously with both COVID vaccines as well as flu vaccines when they're being transported from an office location to the home. And sometimes we're out for, a relatively significant period of time as we go to 4 or 5 homes in a day, and we want to be able to upgrade those. Right now, we're following the cold chain as outlined by the United States Pharmacopoeia and the CDC, but it would be really great if we were able to have those better, if you will, upgraded coolers, and they're expensive. They're about $600 a piece. So we would like to be able to have 2 of those. And then some additional funding, $575 for supplies, syringes, needles, basic supplies that we need to go out into the homes to do the vaccines.
So these are people that are currently VNA homebound people, or people that, how do you find these people?
So it can be anybody, actually. There were a number of patients that came through VNA. There were patients that came through the health department and through the EOC. There were patients that came through Senior Resource Association. There were people that called because we did have some publicity, if you will, in the papers, in 32963 and Press Journal. So we got calls from a lot of different places. And when word got out that we were doing it, and word is out there now, we're doing it with the flu as well, people are calling, and we're maintaining lists. We have an ongoing list that we maintain for the COVID vaccines. We've been working with Janssen recently because that's what we've been able to get. So once we have a group of 5 people together, we schedule them. For the COVID vaccines, it has to be 6 for Pfizer and 10 for Moderna. So it's a little bit, different. So we're continuing to do that, and we want to continue to do that, especially as the boosters are now available. We're doing the same thing for the flu. Unlike what we did for COVID, initially we were focusing strictly, if you recall, Karen, we were focusing strictly on the homebound. Even if they had caregivers in their home that could have very much benefited, the health department really wanted us to look at the homebound as an individual. With our flu program, we will also be reaching caregivers of people that are in a sense, homebound with the homebound. And we've actually discovered a number of families that are homebound together. I mean, there are some really, really sad stories where there's families of 3, with a mom and a dad and a grown child that are homebound together for various disease reasons or because of an accident. And so we want to be able to reach those people as well and their caregivers in the home. So that's really, it's kind of word of mouth.
So Pat, this, I think Mary Beth had a very good question. It's not just VNA patients.
Definitely not.
This is the type of work that health departments used to do years ago.
You're right,
And they got out of visiting in the home. And the VNA is probably the broadest organization that has that capacity to do it and
Very
take on the community. It's population, community health.
Valid
public
point
health,
that you made.
And work, and, yeah.
Well, the health department actually contacted Pat and I and asked.
Exactly, because they used to do it, but they no longer do that.
Yes.
It's going back to what we used to do 100 years ago.
Definitely not just VNA patients, yes.
So any other questions for comments? So we need to take a vote on that. What is the total? I don't have it.
The total is $8,275.
$8,275, so.
I move to support it.
Okay, and so we'll take the vote. Karen?
Yes.
Okay, Michael, yes. Anne Marie?
And, yes,
Yes.
Terry? Barbara? Alan?
Yes.
Okay, and I say yes, so.
Thank you all very much. We're very grateful, and it will go a long way to helping us continue the program.
everybody will appreciate that.
We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Get them all vaccinated.
Thanks for being our audience tonight.
Yes, thank you. Any other new business? Any other business?
I would just add that I'm going to, now that you have taken that action, I'm going to move that 8275 out of your contingency reserve into the line item underneath the VNA, because that's where we will expend those dollars, so that there's an expense account for that to hit when we expend the dollars. So I'll reduce the reserve by that amount, also reduce the reserve amount into the Gifford Health Center Reserve Fund to take care of the roof repairs, so I'll deplete that before I submit the budget to the state. Okay.
Okay, all right. Is there any public comment? No public comment. Okay. Hearing that, we are adjourned for the month of September.
Thank you all.
Just, we got it right.